So last class we were talking about micropropagation and what are the various types, how it is done. So to summarize, we have already seen the details of it. So just for summary, I have just put on some few slides. You can also see the various stages or processes of micropropagation. Apart from the actual detail of procedure, you can see what other topics are involving micropropagation. So this is already known that it is propagated by plants are normally propagated by sexual as well as asexual means, and so clonal propagation or micropropagation is an asexual reproduction wherein the daughter plantlet is genetically identical to the parent. So it is a rapid practice of rapidly multiplying stock plant material to produce large number of progeny plants using plant tissue culture methods. This is a flow chart, very simple flow chart where you can explain the steps involved in micro propagation. So selection.
Ma'am, screen தெரியல ma'am.
Ma'am, screen is still downloading, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
அப்படியா? Oh, how is that? For you, it is still downloading. You're not able to see the screen, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, ho, ho. Even the first slide, you were not able to see?
No, ma'am.
Oh, oh. So until it gets fully downloaded, you will not be able to see, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Acha, acha.
Ma'am, it's opened, ma'am.
Now it's seen now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. So this I was just telling you about the what we had seen in the last class about micropropagation, and this is the simple flow chart where you select the mother plant and then the actual process of micropropagation where it involves initiation, multiplication, and hardening, development and hardening, establishment, they call it initiation and establishment, multiplication, and then hardening. Actually here you have a separate phase here which is called organogenesis or embryogenesis. In this case you can either see these two are initiation and establishment of culture and multiplication of shoots. These are normal phenomena. You can either go in for shooting, rooting, and normal development of a plantlet from callus or explant, or you can go in for embryo development, producing somatic embryos, where that is called embryogenesis, and you can go in for organogenesis or embryogenesis in between. Okay, so whatever process you use for micropropagation, that is from callus, from explant to callus, callus to shooting, shooting to rooting, rooting to the entire plant and then hardening, or callus directly you go in for embryo development, or explant you can directly go in for embryo development. So either you go in for organogenesis meaning the conversion of callus, or you regeneration or de-differentiation of callus to form different organs,
Root and
roots, or in you can go in for somatic embryos. So finally all the plantlets are subjected to hardening under greenhouse environment and then later on in the soil environment. Everybody, it is am I audible to everybody? You are able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is what is these are the approaches involved in micropropagation. You can use axillary buds or apical shoots. You can use adventitious shoots, adventitious buds, or else directly you can raise the whole plantlet. using the adventitious shoots or buds, because their cells will be meristematic, and they are capable of regenerating into the whole plantlet given the proper media and environmental condition. Apart from these approaches, you can also go in for organogenesis, where from the callus or from the explant directly you produce shoots and roots and get the plantlet. And you have another thing is embryogenesis, somatic embryogenesis. This is also treated as micropropagation, because it is everything is done in a test tube in the in vitro condition. That is why it is also called micropropagation. So organogenesis is formation of individual organs from the explant. Somatic embryogenesis is formation of embryos from somatic cells or callus or explant, whatever. So these are some slides which will show you how the axillary buds are used. What is an axillary bud actually? From where you have to take the explant, that is just located between the axils of the leaf. So shoot between the axillary buds and the what to say, between the leaf and the stem. So you can use this for micropropagation because they will have meristem and shoot tip cells. Again, shoot tip cells, you are going to take this portion. You are actually taking this portion for callus development and micropropagation. So it will be rich in meristematic cells. So this apical meristem is cut to provide, to process for micropropagation. So you have, this is just the, what to say, process how it is cut as a V-shaped cut. So MS medium and White's medium is used for meristematic cultures. Bud cultures are also used. Single node culture is also used for micropropagation. Okay, and then this is the actual process for nodal culture, where you just pick up a portion of the node along with the bud, axillary bud. So this portion is the portion which is taken out and put in the medium for development of shoot and root. So this is just few pictures which uses the various parts of the plants for micropropagation. So followed by, initiation followed by shooting and rooting and then hardening. So axillary bud culture, these are all different parts of the plants which are used for micropropagation. You can just take it as an additional material. Okay, adventitious shoots are taken normally for which include the bulbs and the tubers and the rhizomes, where you get a lot of adventitious potatoes. In potatoes, you get ginger, you get a lot of adventitious buds, eyes in Solrolia. So all those are adventitious buds. They can be used as starting material for clonal propagation. So these are the ones, adventitious shoots, which you get, which you can propagate the whole plant. And this is organogenesis I'm going to take actually today. So this is a part of micropropagation. So organogenesis is a part of micropropagation.
Micropropagation.
So this is again a flow chart depicting the organogenesis. This is direct organogenesis and indirect organogenesis, which I'll be explaining you shortly. Embryogenesis, how from the callus tissue you can give rise to the embryo. Embryo, what is the difference between embryo and normal somatic cell? Embryo will have polar spaces, like a pole place for the shoot initiation and a place for root initiation. So it will be bipolar in nature. It will have a polar structure. So that only if the callus develops a bipolar region, it can be called as an embryo. So this is possible with any somatic cell. There is a possibility of embryogenesis from any somatic cell of a plant. So you have direct embryogenesis and indirect embryogenesis. Anyway, I'm going to give all these in detail. Applications of micropropagation, it has a huge potential. Normally, now it is the only potential for revival of plants which are endangered and which cannot be further, there is always a for drug development, people go into the forest and in search of plants. That is all illegal now. And there have been a lot of work and research going on to how fast you can propagate such valuable plants. So since it has a high rate of propagation, it is definitely very advantageous. Another advantage is production of disease-free plants, because you make use of meristematic portions of the plant as the starting material. These are normally free of viruses, because only thing which is dangerous in plant propagation is virus spreading and mycoplasma spreading, because it is very difficult to eliminate them once the plant grows. It is very difficult to control viruses and mycoplasmal infections in plants. So best is going for micropropagation, where you can culture the meristematic portion of the explant and get totally pure virus-free plantlets. So that is very advantageous using micropropagation. Definitely it is cost effective. It has become, so the beginning you may have to put in some amount, but then later on you get a very good yield of plantlets. And finally it becomes very cost effective when you compare the outcome versus the input. It becomes very cost effective. And you can, some plants, some crops do not yield seeds, so it is very difficult to propagate such plants. So banana, no, you don't have seeds. Actually you can't propagate it through seeds. It is very difficult. The best method of propagating such plants is micropropagation. So cauliflower, onion, you can get varieties of them using micropropagation. Since normally genetically modified plants propagation is only through micropropagation. So you can produce genetically modified plants by using protoplast fusion. Following that, you have to do micropropagation. Otherwise, how can you regenerate the whole plant? You cannot. So genetically modified plants can be regenerated only through micropropagation. So you get good disease resistant plants. You can genetically engineer plants, infuse them with high disease resistant capacity, and get good plantlets. There are disadvantages also, very, very tedious, and lot of aseptic conditions are to be met with. So contamination is very, very high. So easily it can get contaminated during subculture. Suppose you have 100 callus, some 70 might get contaminated. Finally, you will end up with 30. Maybe you can propagate them faster, but it takes a bit of labor. And definitely in the beginning, it is you have to spend. You have to be very careful with aseptic conditions. Medium, it is slightly difficult, because most of the media have antioxidant, chemicals which get oxidized very rapidly. So if you don't use them, that means you have to prepare fresh medium every time you want to do propagation technique. Every time you fail in a establishment or subculturing, you have to prepare a fresh medium. So any batch of medium which is prepared, it has to be prepared fresh, because it has a lot of ingredients which oxidize very fast. So in that case, it is not going to be of much use if you prepare yesterday, if you use yesterday's medium. So you have to prepare fresh medium. So in this case, you can, a small amount of this oxidation can be prevented by adding vitamin C or citric acid, they have told, but still it has to be optimized. Another thing is genetic variability. Sometimes you can also get, so we can say it is a clonal propagation. So they are 100% genetically stable, but it cannot be said so. Sometimes you also get epigenetic, no, I was discussing about epigenetic characters. Sometimes, the environment also changes the DNA expression of genes, so that it can be carried out to the next generation also. There is no guarantee that, though it is said it is not carried out, there is no guarantee as such. It might be carried out to the next generation. So genetical variability cannot be totally ruled out. And then sometimes you get some condition called vitrification, wherein the cultures exhibit water-soaked or translucent leaves. So this is actually it stops the further growth of the plantlets. So this can be prevented by increasing the agar concentration, they have told. So this is very, what to say, it is very challenging, because if you increase the agar concentration, the moisture content availability will go less. If you decrease the agar concentration, you may have to face with what is called vitrification. So everything is quite a challenge in micropropagation. Even though it has more advantages, the actual process is a challenging process. So you need some expensive equipment, sophisticated facilities. You need AC around the clock. You need lighting and darkening phase around the clock. You need trained manpower. That is very important. Uh, People who are working in micropropagation work should be very well trained. So it becomes slightly difficult and expensive. So these are some of the advantages of micropropagation. So next we are moving into callus culture and organogenesis. So micropropagation in general, we have seen what is the process, what are the inputs, what goes in for micropropagation, what leads to the final outcome. So callus culture is one kind of micropropagation only. The basic of micropropagation is callus culture. So it is based on totipotency, which you all know, from explant to callus. From callus you can go for organogenesis, you can go for embryogenesis. From embryogenesis you can go for synthetic seeds, and then plantlet and the whole plant. So this is the basis of micropropagation, basis for tissue culture. So callus, what is a callus? This is the picture of the callus. Any unorganized division of cells producing a mass of cells is called a callus. It is based on the auxin and cytokinin ratio. Normally 2,4-D is the most common auxin used. So what happens during callus is there is a de-differentiation. So actually, you know the basics of plant cell division. So cells, you have this, what is it called, meristematic cells. They differentiate to form simple permanent tissue, parenchyma, collenchyma. Okay, and then they continue for some time, and then they have to again develop vascular tissues. So they get de-differentiated. That means they lose their permanent nature. They become meristematic. Normally, meristematic tissue lose their meristematic activity and become permanent tissues. That is how we have studied. So meristematic tissues give rise to parenchyma, collenchyma, later on sclerenchyma. So after the primary growth, parenchyma cell, for secondary growth, the cells have to again become meristematic. Then only they can produce secondary growth. So they have to produce vascular tissues, they have to produce cambium, primary cambium, secondary cambium. So what happens is the permanent tissues undergo what is called de-differentiation. Okay, they become a meristematic again, and then they continue their growth. Then they again become permanent. So you have this process called de-differentiation and re-differentiation. So during callus formation, there is some degree of de-differentiation. Suppose you take a node, you take a nodal cell. Nodes will contain maybe parenchyma, collenchyma mostly. They'll contain collenchyma. Collenchyma is permanent tissue. It has lost its meristematic activity. But then when you put it in a proper medium, the cells will get de-differentiated. They will come back to the meristematic activity. They will go backwards. Okay, so they'll go backwards, they will regain the meristematic activity. That is called de-differentiation. So there is some degree of de-differentiation morphologically and physiologically. So they lose the ability to photosynthesis. This is the most important character of callus. Callus cannot photosynthesize. You have to give in the medium, you have to provide the sugars. They can only divide because they have regained the meristematic activity, so they can only divide. They cannot photosynthesize. That is the most important basic nature character of callus. So properties means it often comes from shoot in early culturing. You put in any explant, the first thing to develop is a callus. You can maintain it indefinitely. You want to maintain a particular culture as callus, you can maintain it indefinitely. You can grow it in dark, doesn't require any special lighting or anything like that. So you can use it indefinitely to synthesize any kind of organ or any kind of embryonic embryo cells. No, it is totipotent. It is a mass of totipotent cells. Callus is nothing but a mass of totipotent cell. So you can use it for any kind of micropropagation techniques. So this is the basis for micropropagation technique. So it's a blob of tissue. Anyway, any plant which gets cut or there is a wound in the plant, immediately after some time you can see it gets healed. That means it produces, naturally the plant has the capacity to divide into unorganized cell group of cells and complete the and close the wound. So it is a natural phenomenon. So they have seen this. You can see the cut portion of the tree. It the outline of the tree or the periphery of the tree is filled with callus. So you can either leave it, if you leave it like that, you can see after a year or so, you can see the shoots coming out. So this is a natural process which you are, you are mimicking it in the laboratory condition. So they are amorphous mass of cells having no regular shape. It is very difficult to describe the external morphology, but you can differentiate them using the color, texture. Okay, on that basis, you can see soft callus and hard callus. Soft callus, based on the texture, is friable, very, very soft. It is made of heterogeneous mass of cells and they are not very tightly positioned. They are not tightly aggregating. Hard callus is the size of the cells are very big and they are quite compact. That means they are tightly associated. So hard callus and soft callus, based on the texture, you can differentiate callus. Coloration is normally it is creamish yellow or white in color. Sometimes depending on the media constituents, it can be pigmented. They say it might get some amount of green coloration. And when white callus tissue grown under dark condition can turn to green color when you are transferring it to light condition. So if you are allowing it to be incubated in the lighting condition, you can get some amount of chlorophyll pigmentation. So sometimes it might be yellow in color due to carotenoid pigments. So it is some cauliflower they've seen it is purple in color due to anthocyanin. So depending on the explant nature, some amount of coloration you can get in callus. So there are three stages of callus culture: induction, proliferative stage, morphogenesis stage. Induction is establishment, just like what you saw in micropropagation: induction, multiplication, and regeneration. So similarly, induction, first stage of callus, when the cells begin to divide. Proliferative stage is rapid multiplication stage. And morphogenesis is the differentiation stage. Like you form, so this morphogenesis stage will depend on what you put in the medium. If you put in more of auxin, you might get shooting. If you put in more of cytokinin, you might get rooting. So it depends on what stage. This is only called organogenesis. Morphogenesis is nothing but the organogenesis from callus. So specific processes that lead to plant regeneration from somatic cells. So till here it is general. From here it becomes specific. Morphogenesis stage, it becomes specific. You want shooting, you want rooting, you want embryo, that becomes morphogenesis. So this is the division. Exponential growth, you can see within weeks, within 2 months, you can see heavy growth. So actively growing callus on a culture medium. Main thing is, important thing is balance of cytokinin and auxin. In this case, it should be balanced. Cytokinin auxin ratio should be in balance. Only then the tissue remains as a callus. Once you raise cytokinin level or you raise the auxin level, you will go in for either rooting or shooting respectively. So it has, if it is in balance, then you can maintain it for as a callus culture for a long time. Okay, so that you have to subculture it every 2 weeks. Okay, so this is what happens during differentiation. That is the morphogenesis stage I have told you, organogenesis and somatic embryogenesis.
Somatic embryogenesis.
Okay, so there are 3 criteria for callus culture. How do you do it? You aseptic preparation, which we have all seen in micropropagation technique itself, how you aseptically prepare the plant material. Selection of suitable nutrient medium, because it is important, because auxin cytokinin ratio has to be balanced. Then incubation of the culture under controlled physical condition. This is also very important. Only then you can be successful in your in vitro cultivation. So selection of medium is important, because auxin cytokinin ratio, see 10:1 or 100:1 induces roots. If you increase the auxin, it induces roots. Okay, if you decrease the auxin, it induces shoots. So it depends on, and depends on the explant also. Sometimes some of the explants behave differently. You can say increasing auxin will be developing shoot, but in some explant it might give an opposite reaction. So it all depends on many factors, epigenetic factors and environmental factors. So intermediate ratios, 1:1 favors callus growth. So 1:1 equal amount of auxin cytokinin favors callus growth. So agar has to be either you can use it as solid or you can use it as semi-solid medium. That is best for callus. If you want to see the callus, if you want to maintain it in a liquid medium also, it is possible, but you will not see you can't maintain tight hard callus in liquid medium. In liquid medium, you will get only soft callus. You will not get the hard callus. If you want hard callus, you grow it in a solid medium. So you have to, all the aseptic conditions are taken care of. So incubation is very important, 25 plus or minus 2 degrees, 16 hours light and 16 hours dark. For a few days, you can keep the whole thing in the dark and then go in for lighting darking period. And light intensity is also optimized. And humidity has to be anywhere between 55 and 60. So these are the basic conditions for production of calli. And this lighting, you can somewhat change it. Even if you keep it for a longer time in dark, you will get callus. Only for differentiation, you need lighting. For just maintaining it as callus, you don't need a light. It is enough if you put it in the dark. So this is the basic aseptic features involved. You can use bivestin or alcohol or hypochlorite or happen. Yeah. These are the aseptic conditions involved. And then inoculation, callus formation, suspension culture, new plant. This is a briefly what are the steps involved. These are the pictures showing different textures of callus, different colors. So you can see the different colored callus. Okay. So these are the shooting part of the callus. So callus, to summarize, it is just a mass of parenchymatous cells. The explant can be anything. It can be a node, it can be an internode, it can be a leaf, it can be a flower, it can be any part of the plant. But callus, it forms callus. That means it gets de-differentiated and forms a mass of parenchymatous cells with meristematic activity. So they go in for 2 main phases of the micropropagation is organogenesis and somatic embryogenesis. So these 2 completed go in for plant regeneration. So this is the basis for micropropagation. So callus is the first step in micropropagation. Next is organogenesis. So organogenesis is definitely unique to plant because only plants have totipotency. So just with callus, if it has to stop, there is no use. So plants have the potential to convert the callus cells or cells of the callus into the whole plant, which is only unique to the plants. So you can produce de novo many types of primordia. Primordia means first tissue for a shoot or a root. So from callus, explant, callus, meristemoid it is called. The first primordia which I told you, the tip, meristemoid. Organ primordia means shoot tip or root tip. So what happens is explant gets de-differentiated, it gets induced to form callus, and then it gets differentiated to form organ. So you see de-differentiation and re-differentiation here. So in nature itself, plants undergo this. And I mean meristematic, then differentiation, then de-differentiation, to produce again meristematic tissues for secondary growth, and then again permanent. Again, some part of the life cycle, it might get re-differentiated to some other organ, some other tissue type, like how you know, collenchyma can be re-differentiated into some other tissue type based on the growth metabolism. So like that, this in micropropagation also, organogenesis happens this way. This is the natural path of plant growth. You have to, it is seen even in the in vitro conditions. As you see in the natural condition, the same concept applies in the in vitro condition also. So this is wheat inflorescence, you get the seeds, you get the embryos. Okay, same thing, you can get it, you can get the wheat inflorescence by micropropagation also through callus. So embryos, you take the embryos, you put them in a medium containing balanced amount of auxin cytokinin, you develop callus, you change the amount of auxin cytokinin, you get the whole wheat. So this is naturally what happens, this is artificially what happens here. So it is the same metabolism, same concept is, we are taking advantage of that. So organogenesis is formation of roots, shoots or flower buds from the cells in culture, similar to any, just like what you do in cuttings. When you take a cutting and put it in the soil, you get adventitious roots or adventitious shoots. Same thing, you get it in the laboratory condition. So mainly it is in response to the stimulation given by the chemicals in the medium. So you put the callus in a chemical soup, you get whatever you want. So you get shoot initiation is called collagenesis, root initiation is called rhizogenesis, depending on the auxin cytokinin ratio. So both are controlled. These two are the most important organs which are developing. So collagenesis, rhizogenesis are the basic organogenesis. Only after that you get the other growth of the plant, like leaf primordia are initiated only after that. So these are controlled by the hormones. Generally, a high auxin cytokinin induces shoot, and high cytokinin auxin induces root. So it starts with the development of meristematic cells called meristemoids. So callus tissue produces what is called meristemoids when it is subjected to a nutrient medium with a high auxin cytokinin ratio. So first meristemoids are produced, and only after that the shoot, the collagenesis or the shoot initiation is taken place. So depending on the factors within the system, the primordium develops into a shoot, root or embryoid. The two types of organogenesis: direct regeneration, indirect organogenesis. Direct organogenesis is an explant getting converted into an organ. So explant getting converted to meristemoid, meristemoid getting converted into shoot or root. Indirect, explant getting converted into callus, callus getting converted into root primordia or shoot primordia. So it again depends on the auxin cytokinin ratio. So auxin cytokinin ratio, directly when you subject the explant to a medium, when you put a leaf bit into a medium containing auxin cytokinin ratio, low auxin cytokinin ratio, it induces to root. If you subject the explant to a high auxin cytokinin ratio, it induces shoot. So this is direct regeneration. Indirect is after the callus, you subject the callus to this condition, auxin cytokinin ratio. So that is called indirect organogenesis. This is the process. Okay, explant callus, meristemoid, shoot bud, root primordia. This is how it looks in the test tube. So for this hormones, the same thing again and again. Only the hormones play a major role in any kind of organogenesis. Required balance of phytohormones, exogenous supply of auxin cytokinin, high concentration of cytokinin brings shoot bud initiation, whereas high level of auxin favors rooting. Okay, so organogenesis, you require combinations of hormones. You have to optimize them according to the requirement of your plantlets and your explant, nature of the explant. No, everything you have to optimize it according to the requirement. Okay, so factors affecting organogenesis, I request, yeah, I think in about 2 minutes it will close. So before that, I thought I'll finish it off. So factors affecting organogenesis, genetic or a physiological change is important. In a callus tissue, the changes in the chromosomal structure, I told you, innate chromosomal changes or epigenetic changes will definitely affect the organogenesis. Okay, so this aneuploidy, polyploidy, all these chromosomal aberrations and rearrangements, you know, aneuploidy is -1, polyploidy is multiple copies of chromosome. So all these change to the, it might lead to loss of totipotency. Sometimes it might start okay, but then suddenly in the middle it might fail to grow. So in that case, it might, the whole thing might be a failure. So similarly, sometimes you might get a diploid cells. Sometimes it can change to aneuploid. It can be mixaploid. Girls, I think you have to rejoin, ma. Please rejoin, huh?
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.